pie. I love pie week. So I am gonna kind of preview the last 2 weeks as far as Thanksgiving planning as a whole, and just kind of wanted to let you know how I designed these 2 weeks to assist you, especially for my US friends, in preparation for Thanksgiving. So Pie Week is intentionally the week ahead of Thanksgiving, because the whole point for Pie Week and Feast Week, especially again for those of us who are preparing for Thanksgiving, is I wanted to intentionally write in these activities to make the preparation for Thanksgiving intentional and spread out and calm, and not a big sprint at the end. So we're starting ahead of time with making some pies. And with this, I intentionally want you to prepare if you're making pies for Thanksgiving, this is your week that you can begin to get started. And as I go through the 2 recipes, I'll kind of let you know which ones can go in the freezer, and how you can kind of use this to actually get ahead, so that by the time Thanksgiving comes, your pies are done, your recipes are beautiful. So these 2 weeks are kind of this big prep for the feast. And in the story itself for Pie Week, they are getting started for the Thanksgiving prep. All right, so Pie Week. I love pie. So our story this week, they are preparing for the feast. So they are going to be making pies for the autumn feast, and Hamilton, of course, has never made a pie. And what the fun thing about this story is that it really gets to celebrate each of the gnomes and friends' strengths. Because at the beginning, it's all right, it's time to make pie, and it kind of all goes wrong, because to make a pie is delicate. You have to be very delicate with the crust. If you work it too hard, it won't turn out. If your hands are too warm, it won't turn out. So it's a very delicate process, and we see, with Rudabug's big strong hands, with Morrison's big strong hands, and with everyone's kind of, if they all start just making one together, it just doesn't go well at first. But then Pottlebloom comes in, and he gives them each a specific task to kind of create a pie assembly line that really focuses on each of their strengths. So for the mashing of the pumpkin, we get Rudabug or Morrison doing that. For chopping the butter, and each of them gets assigned a role, and then together they make the perfect pie. So it's a really great opportunity to talk about celebrating our strengths and what we're good at and our talents, and how sometimes when we try to do something all on our own, it doesn't turn out as well. But when we celebrate teamwork, when we work together and celebrate all of our different strengths, we can really come together to create something wonderful and delicious. So it's a really, really sweet story about celebrating each of their strengths. And then of course, in the process, Hamilton creates a pecan pie, which they had never had before, and they love it. So the pecan pie recipe is not in the book because it's a trickier one to make with kids, but there are 2 things in our community that you can find. So in the recipe support section, you can find additional recipes, and I have my maple brown sugar pecan pie recipe in there. It is the best pecan pie you've ever had. It is so lovely, and it is all maple syrup and brown sugar, no corn syrup, and it is absolutely delicious. It is a trickier one to do because you have to do a blind bake, and you have to, cook it. So that's why it's not in the book, because it's not as friendly to make with kids, but it is delicious. And then also in that same section, I have a full video tutorial, like a half an hour long straight, of me making a pie crust to walk you through how to make the pie crust recipe in here. Because again, pie crust is tricky. It can be fun, but it can be tricky. So there's tricks. So if you've never done pie crust before, find that video and watch it, and it'll really help you walk through all the little tips and things to work for. So our song this week, of course, is Let's Make a Pie. Now, I got to help write the lyrics for this song because, of course, Nathaniel doesn't really know how to make a pie. But pie is one of my specialties. So let's make a pie. If you want to focus on the just let's make a pie today kind of chorus with your children, to kind of repeat that is really fun. But the actual lyrics of the verses actually instruct you how to make a pie. So if you're, again, newer to making a pie, those lyrics, and as you sing through those, it will give you some tips along the way to remember to make a successful pie. So I hope this song is a helpful, instructional song to help you make the best pie possible. And if you are a baker, let me know how I did. Let me know if this checks out for how you bake a pie. So So it's a really fun one to sing along to as you're making pie. So of course this is more of, you can use it in circle time if you'd like, but it's very good around the table. Now for circle time this week, something that Nathaniel would always love to do is to like designate the kids as ingredients. So, okay, you're gonna be the butter and you're gonna be the flour, and they like act it out with their bodies, and he like mixes them up, and it's a hoot. So if you want to make a pie with your kids, that's a fun active circle time game. And then of course you can use this song as you make pie this week. So pie week, Cinnamon-Clove Play-Doh is how we start off. And of course this is a great preface to using that dough. You can begin to make little mini pies, practicing your rolling or cutting if you're going to do lattice work, all of that. So this is a great time to just kind of practice some pie making with your Cinnamon-Clove Play-Doh, or again, whatever Play-Doh you have available or leftover, or anything you want to reuse. Then our first getting into pie, our main lesson, day one, is making the dough. So we have our recipe here, pie dough. I have a full portion, which makes 2 pie crusts. So if you're gonna do a full apple pie, you need the 2. That's that. And the child's portion is 1 pie crust. So you can use that to make 1 pumpkin, like the shell of a pumpkin pie or the shell of a pecan pie. Or you can also use these to make mini pies. Now Nathaniel's favorite is the mini pies. The ratio of crust to filling is really, really nice. So you can also use these to create little ones. If you did get the November kit, or if you're going to get a November kit, you'll get the little mini pie tins and the little cutters to make mini pies. They are so scrumptious. I think my favorite is pumpkin pie as mini pies instead of the big ones, because just the ratio of crust to filling is so lovely. So there's your pie dough recipe. Be sure to watch that video if you're newer to pie crust. My big tip and trick for successful pie crust is a spray bottle, because essentially what you want to do is you want to add as little water as possible, because if you add too much water, your crust will be so tough. It'll be like crust jerky, like you won't be able to bite through it. So you want to add as little water as possible. So using that spray bottle moistens the flour without over adding. So you spray and you stir and you spray and you stir, and you want to continue to do that until, as you hear in the song, until the flour holds. So you grab some of that crust, and it should look crumbly, and if you pinch it, if you hold it together in your hand, when you let go, it should just hold together, and that's how you know you're ready for the next step. So the children love the spray bottle, spray, 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 and you mix. There also is a little bit of apple cider vinegar in the water mixture. Again, won't taste the vinegar once it's baked, but it again helps to moisten that pie crust dough without over adding the water. So a lot of tips in there. So you're gonna make your pie dough, and then of course it has to chill. Some tips as far as bringing it together. You can use beeswax wrap, or I do just love using just a tea towel, or of course you can use plastic wrap. That bringing it together is kind of an essential technique that you'll see me demonstrate in that video as well. So pie dough making, we have a great alternative gluten-free recipe that Jessica developed, because pie dough can be tricky. And then the next morning, we're gonna be making the apple pie filling. So if you wanna get out your spiral peeler again, you can chop up the apples. What I like to do is I actually like to have the little filling already in a bowl, and they do the apples and chop it up and then just add it and toss it. And then our main lesson for baking day is assembling pies. So I like to have little, for my classroom setting, I'll have the apple filling they just made, as well as little measuring cups full of pumpkin pie filling, and they'll get to roll out their little pies, and we like to make the mini pies in the classroom, and they're really, really lovely. Then we have our classic apple pie recipe right here for you, and my some adaptations, and my favorite, Miss Lisa's favorite pumpkin pie. This is it's a very spiced pie. I like to go a little heavy-handed on my spices, so it's silky, it's spiced, it's just delicious. It's my absolute favorite, and of course you see them pictured here as minis, which are just the most little scrumptious little thing ever. Now, 4 tips on preparation, right? So if you're doing this ahead of Thanksgiving week, here's my tips for preparation. Apple pies can be fully made and assembled and stick in the freezer. So if the next week you're planning on having an apple pie for Thanksgiving, I would say use the apple pie recipe, make your pie crust, fully make your apple pie with your children, and put it in the freezer. and then it's done. Then the next week you can just pop it in the oven while you're working on turkey or whatever. So that is one of my kind of preparation tips. The apple pies can be fully made, assembled, complete in the freezer. For pumpkin pies, on pie week, I do like to make these little mini pumpkins as a part of the process to just, eat those fresh that week, but you can't really make a pumpkin pie for the week before. But what I do like to do for the pumpkin pies for my actual Thanksgiving prep is roll it out and make your pie shell and then put that in the freezer. So if I'm gonna make 2 pumpkin pies for Thanksgiving, I'll make my pie crust, roll it out, and make my full pie shell and keep that in the freezer. So after pie week, I have my full apple pies in the freezer and I have my full pumpkin shells in the freezer. So then on Thanksgiving week, I just need to fill, because making the pumpkin pie filling is pretty simple. So I just need to pour that in, bake them, pop the apples in the oven, apple pies in the oven, and it just makes for a really easy week. So those are my tips for preparing for Thanksgiving feast if you're preparing for that. And then of course, pie week is like my pie crust extravaganza week. I just make all the pie crusts that I'm gonna use for the rest of the year. So those are my tips for anyone preparing for Thanksgiving and how to prepare. What about for the pecan pie prep? So same thing for the pumpkin, you can't really do that ahead of time, but you can make the shell ahead of time. So same thing, roll out and make your pie shell and pop that in the freezer. And then when you're ready to make your pecan pie, that one does need to be blind baked. So you'll line it with parchment and fill it with either the beans or pie weights or whatever you want to use. Blind bake that, but you don't want to blind bake that ahead of time either. So just the pecan and the pumpkins, you can freeze the unbaked pie shells, and then those pie shells are going to be ready to fill and bake on Thanksgiving week. But the apple pie, the whole thing can freeze, which makes it really easy. All right, and then pie week, painting day, super simple. Crayons and watercolor painting. You can use whatever colors you want. If you want to offer a few wet on wet watercolors, if you want to offer a palette of watercolors, you can, but just enjoy a very simple drawing and painting day, especially after all of the commotion of making pie. Whew, you're probably going to want a little break, so that's why I threw in just simple, just draw, just paint. That's all you need to do.